Fluorescents buzzed like trapped flies. Cold light washed the bay in a chalky sheen. Oil streaked the concrete in long ellipses. A planetarium for the floor. Noah Mercer stood just beyond the taped box marked Live Frame. He could see the red tally on the main camera and the sweetened grin of the publicist counting down with fingers behind her clipboard. The engine waited on a stand the size of a coffin, braided cables like arteries, coolant lines sweating. Someone had wiped the casings until they reflected a blur of faces. "Keep him out of the shot," Verena said softly. The mic still picked it up. "We sell innovation, not janitors." Aria Delgado didn't answer. She aligned an evidence sleeve on the cart, clipped a pre-printed label, and looked up only when the lens found her. "Well, V. D7, she said. "Chain opens at Ote. Ling R. Sheree." Her voice landed like a rubber stamp. Noah moved closer. He felt the engine before he touched it. The faint tremor in the air like a cat purring from the next room. He slid his palm flat on the casing, warm through the powder coat. The heat carried a pattern, a quilt of micro-vibrations he could read if the room would stop talking. The room didn't. 3, 2. The publicist pointed like a conductor pretending at grace. Verena stepped into the light in a white blazer that refused shadow. "Good morning from Bay 2, she said. "Tech Vanguard begins a new chapter. Audited. Repeatable. Beautiful." Noah caught Aria's eye. She nodded once toward the tray. He picked up the seal packet she'd laid out. C403. Checked the code against the ledger and held it up so the side camera could see. The second lens did not pan. The operator's knuckles tightened around the handle and drew a slow semicircle back to Verena's hand as she gestured. "Bring her to 34, Verena said. Ethan at the console tapped keys he wiped too often. The display found 34. 0. With smug exactness. The engine asked for fuel, then air, then permission. When Noah twisted the key, the note that rose wasn't loud. It was exact, a low A, that made the racks hum in sympathy and settled inside his chest like a remembered name. "That's our girl," Ethan whispered. "Telemetry." "Ms. Kim?" Verena asked without turning. "Clean," Aria said, bias within tolerance. The first minute was choreography. The hum held. The cameras loved Verena's profile. A visiting investor traced a fingertip along the polished edge of a tool chest without looking at the man who'd polished it. At 01, Sergio, a hiss shaved the edges off the note. Subtle. The kind of change you'd miss if your heart didn't lean toward frequency the way another person's leaned toward applause. Noah felt it in his wrist. "Hold." Ethan froze. "Which channel?" "South Manifold." Noah said. "She's thirsty where she shouldn't be." Aria lifted her head. "Confirm a pressure anomaly at S2. A bead of coolant formed at a braided joint, fattened, and fell. The drop hit the pan with a tin that cut through the hum and the publicist's whisper. The live feed hung a hair behind reality, smoothing the sound into something less like a glitch and more like the room was breathing wrong. Verena didn't glance at the leak. She faced the A camera. "Adversity is a design partner," she said. "We welcome it." Noah stepped forward. A security guard slid a foot out, as if a line existed on the floor only he could see. The guard's hand hovered near his radio. Noah kept moving. "I said we welcome it," Verena repeated, louder now, as if the engine were an intern that needed correcting. The hiss sharpened, the note slid flat a tenth of a tone, and refused to climb back. The sensor would trip at a threshold the algorithms thought was generous. The shutdown cascade would dump 60 seconds of paperwork into Aria's hands and 20 minutes of smug into the investor's eyes. Noah reached the manifold. He didn't have gloves. He didn't want them. Skin told the truth quicker. He pressed 2 fingers against the coupling. Too much give. The flaw wasn't catastrophic. It was arrogant. A factory assembly tightened to American habit over a German thread. "Don't touch my engine," Verena said. He had already loosened the lock ring. He had already felt the thread bite like a small, polite animal. He adjusted a quarter turn. Then a hair. He brought the threads to the same language. The hiss changed first. Then, the note in his bones shifted a fraction higher, slid into place, and held. Heat spiked through his palm. He smelled it before he saw it, the sweet iron reek when skin meets metal too long. A thin line opened along the web between thumb and forefinger. Blood rounded, glossy as varnish. "Get him out," someone said. "Chain continues," Arya said. She slid the evidence sleeve open with a stiff whisper and lifted her phone to capture a still, the manifold, the coupling, the cut. Limba, Ling Luke. 47 burned into the image like a brand. SE 403. Applied post-contact, she added, and stuck the seal over the coupling, smoothing its edges with the side of her thumb. Marked. The camera pivoted slow, reluctant, and framed Verena over the engine. "You're watching Resilience," she said. The main note returned to pure. The rack settled. The investor dropped his finger from the tool chest and glanced at the monitor that finally admitted to itself that the numbers mattered. Noah kept his hand on the casing. He wasn't calibrating anymore. He was listening to be sure the moment held. Blood crept along his wrist in a thin, obstinate line, found the edge of his cuff, and vanished into cotton. Arya ripped a piece of sterile gauze from a pack and held it toward him without ceremony. He took it one-handed, pressed it tight, and felt the sting bite his elbow to make sure he was real. He didn't ask for tape. He didn't want the scene to look like anything except what it was. "On baseline 14, Verena said. "We're live." Ethan raised an eyebrow to Noah. Noah nodded. The hum lay flat and content, like a dog on a warm rug after rain. The publicist floated back in questions after. She hissed, "To no one and everyone," like a draft under a door. "At 08, Sure. Sure." Arya set the stamp down hard on the ledger. The sound was a small gunshot in paper. The red clock next to the stamp imprinted the second inside the outline of the county seal. She blew once. The ink bled into fibers and became law. "Baseline held," she said quietly. Verena smiled wide enough to show the camera a row of teeth that believed in themselves. "Audited," she said. "Repeatable. Beautiful." Noah looked up at the boom mic hung from a pole overhead. Its shadow cut across his chest like a sash he hadn't earned. The operator adjusted the angle so the shadow fell instead on Verena's shoulder. The move was practiced, unthinking, correct for the shot. Noah laughed once. No sound, just the shape of it. He could fix threads, not lines of sight. A uniformed fire inspector stepped into frame with the stiff disdain of a man asked to play a tree. "Pardon," he said. "We need clearance for ventilation." Verena's smile didn't drop. "We're within code." He sniffed, eyes flicking to Noah's blood, then to the coupling. "Looks warm." "Recorded," Arya said, without looking up. She wrote the badge number in the margin, added his phrasing in quotation marks, then moved the ledger a half-inch so the camera could see the line, and then moved it back. The camera did not follow. Her hand made a note anyway. The hum held at 34. It had the shape of a promise nobody smart would make out loud. Noah eased back, letting his palm slide from the casing to the table edge. Feeling the burr where the powder coat had missed by a finger width, he liked that. Imperfections were handles. Cut the last 90 seconds in the edit. The publicist said, "Too close to a hot mic. We'll build a cold open from the quote and the smile." Arya glanced toward Noah's hand, and then to his face. You okay? Warm, he said. Need tape? He shook his head. Just the note. She allowed herself the smallest smile. We kept it. The investor drifted toward Verena with a practiced amble. Impressive, he said. Aside from the theatrics, thermodynamics is performance. She said, we choreographed truth. Noah wiped his palm on a rag. The blood left a comet tail of brown on white. He folded the rag once, as if making a flag small, in the breast pocket of his coveralls, the linen bag, with the fork halves pressed against bone. He felt the weight and the gap between them like a second pulse. Hold for redundancy, Ethan said. Logged. Arya said. The bay quieted in a way only noisy rooms can. The fluorescents buzzed. The HVAC exhaled. Somewhere deep, a forklift bumped a pallet and apologized with a squeak. For an instant, the whole building seemed to inhale on the same count. Noah leaned into the quiet and listened harder, because quiet hid lies as well as chaos did. The hum didn't pretend now. It sat square in the middle of the room. He matched his breathing to it and didn't move until the minute turned. 10. Arya said, seal it. Verena said. Arya lifted SE 404. She paused, looked to Noah. He nodded again. She placed the seal with the care of someone laying a palm on a sleeping animal. The adhesive sound was too soft to be drama. It was the sound of work. Good, Verena said to the camera. On to the future. The red tally light blinked off. The bay shrank a size. Conversation lost its teeth. The publicist let her shoulders fall and wiped a finger along her lower lip, fixing a nothing. The fire inspector signed a form you could frame and forget. The live screen on the wall froze on Verena's last smile. Noah saw his reflection superimposed over her shoulder. A smudge, wearing a smudge's clothes. He pressed the gauze harder and watched the white take the shape of his hand. It looked like a map that ended at the wrist. Mercer, the guard said as everyone uncoiled. Next time, wait for clearance. Next time, Noah said. He walked past the taped, live frame bot. The edge of the tape tugged at his boot, and then let go. He stepped into the part of the room the cameras had pretended didn't exist. The note followed, too quiet for microphones and too loud for him to ignore. Outside the bay door, the morning had shifted from gray to thinner gray. The loading dock tasted like metal and coffee. Noah blew warmth into his fingers and watched his breath drift and break against the cold air. He listened once more through the concrete and wiring, through the body of a building designed to forget hands, and felt the hum sit down where it belonged. It held. The lobby smelled like polished stone and citrus cleaner. Light fell through the glass atrium in pale slabs that made everyone look airbrushed. A podium had been rolled onto the terrazzo beside a living wall of watered ferns. Microphones grew from it like chrome grass. 5 minutes, the publicist said, sweeping past with a clipboard. We'll keep it human. Noah waited near the service corridor. His badge clipped low, sleeves rolled. The gauze under his cuff had gone the color of weak tea. A camera operator adjusted white balance, lifting a card with a model's face printed on it. The square skin tone looked nothing like his. On the big screens mounted above reception, a loop played, Verena smiling, the engine's contour glinting. A pull quote, audited, repeatable, beautiful. Comments crawled along the bottom from a live feed. Janitor Saves Unicorn had already been minted into a joke, and the joke had become a sticker on a delivery bike parked just outside the revolving door. Arya crossed to him, carrying the ledger. Well, 17, tucked against her ribs, we're issuing a short, she said. 2 sentences. No adjectives. Sounds merciful. Noah said. PR wants me to add hero. He looked past her at the podium. I'm not a word. You're a witness. She leaned in, lowered her voice. "Sign this, and they stop calling you one." The form was crisp. The header read, "Statement of Authorized Spokesperson." It granted Com's final edit control. A line for his signature waited like a hole in snow. "Where do my hands go after I sign?" he asked. "Into their frame," she said, politely. Noah didn't reach for the pen. He put a knuckle to the ledger instead, felt the impressed lines under the paper from previous stamps. "I'll say nothing on camera. That's my contribution." Arya watched his mouth as if the silence might smuggle extra words. "Decline," she said, and penciled it in the margin next to the document ID, with a neat slash. The HR manager swanned over wearing a scarf you could measure a window with. "We need a soft arc," she said to Arya. Noah remains humble. The company lifts him. America believes again. Arya's smile was sterile. "We'll lift a process," she said. "Gravity works on people." HR blinked at her like a doll that had learned to breathe. "We don't air friction." Noah stepped away before he answered something he couldn't keep. The escalator hummed him down to the mezzanine, where the mailboxes hid behind frosted glass. The security guard at the desk glanced at his badge, then his face, and let his eyes rest half a beat too long. "Package for Mercer," the guard said. "We already scanned it." "Thanks," Noah said. "It smelled like bleach." The guard added, then shrugged as if smells had policies. Noah slid the small padded envelope into his back pocket unopened. The tuning fork halves in his breast pocket chimed against each other with the movement. A tiny dental sound under the lobby's handsomeness, a bank of monitors behind the desk, flickered to a hallway camera, Verena moving through her retinue toward the podium, fixing the set of her jaw with a fingertip like a seamstress. A stylist offered a square of blotting paper. Verena did not take it. Arya joined him again. A new folder under her arm. "We had a mislabel," she said. His eyes found the code before she told him where to look. SE 403 on a photo. SE 408 inches the log. Same coupling, same angle, slightly different light. "No," he said. "I placed 303. You placed 303. She flipped to the next page. The video still showed his hand, the gauze, the ring of the coupling. Zoomed in. The tamper seal read SE 403. The ledger entry captured, later, had SE 408 crossed over it in red. Somebody corrected us. Arya's mouth made a line that shouldn't have been pretty. "You or me?" Noah asked. "Neither," she said. "No chain initial, no audit trail. Sloppy or scared." "Why not both?" he said. She lifted her phone, thumbed to a timer app. "We'll reseal on camera." The timer counted down from 00. Sancher. "Ling ling. You'll show the code." I stamp the ledger. We walk away. Noah watched the seconds eat themselves. "They'll crop my hand. Then the hand will live somewhere other than TV." She glanced over the rail toward the podium. "They're warming up." A production assistant in a thin black sweater stood on tiptoe. "Mic check," she said. "1, 2 honest." Verena took the microphone without looking at the assistant. "We are a city inside a building," she said. Smile rationed like a precious mineral. "We breathe the future and exhale jobs." Noah leaned against the mezzanine rail. The atrium's air conditioning touched his forearms and evaporated the sweat without permission. A child in a school group stopped in front of the living wall and pressed his hand into the leaves, leaving finger-shaped dark patches the water couldn't hide. The publicist lifted a placard to signal Q&A after the statement. A reporter raised his hand anyway. "Has the company addressed reports that the hero of today's test is a Jan?" Arya's head angled. "1.5 degrees. A comms tech killed the mic to that section." The screen feed jumped, cutting to a loop of B-roll. Robots welding. a drone taking a polite corner in a warehouse aisle. Words scrolled underneath about community partnerships and green credits. Noah breathed and let the breath go. He felt the fork halves answer the speaker's base. Tiny vibrations ran a line from pocket to ribs. Arya touched his elbow. "Come with me." They took the service stairs to the equipment cage. The room was colder, lit by a light that hummed without shame. On a steel table, she laid out a fresh seal kit. SE-409 this time. She peeled back the adhesive half, the glue stringing like honey at the edge. "Camera 1, she said into her lapel. A red light winked from the corner. "Ledger." Noah held the packet at chest height, angled to catch the camera. He waited until he heard her stamp hit paper. "Ling Ba, Sanchi. Ling R," she said. "Reseal initiated. Prior mislabel noted." He pressed the seal over the coupling in a single smooth motion. The adhesive gave a wet sigh. He smoothed it with the flat of 2 fingers, imagining the inked letters settling into microscopic valleys of the metal. He lifted his hand and left a smudge he didn't wipe off. "SE-409 apply," Arya said. "Initial A, D, plus witness." Noah looked at the lens. "I'm the one who touched it," he said. "The file will know," Arya said. He laughed. "Files forget faster than people." "Not mine," she said. They stood without speaking for 10 seconds and listened to the room. Ductwork carried a low, steady sound like a breath called work. Somewhere a compressor thumped and calmed. Noah thought of lungs with settings. The camera light went dark. Arya closed the ledger with a soft thump that sounded like an end. "Back upstairs," she said. In the elevator, a floor manager slid in wearing a headset and urgency. He glanced at Noah's badge. "Ops. Maintenance." Noah said. "Right," the man said, and shifted 1 step to put Arya between them. The doors opened on applause. Verena shook hands that appeared from sleeves of expensive fabric. A woman with a pen poised like a wand asked, "Can you comment on the optics of elevating custodial staff to engineering spokes?" "Next question," the publicist said, smiling with all teeth. "We have time for one more." A boy from the school group had slipped past his chaperone and stood now at the edge of the rope line. He watched Noah with the unabashed concentration of the young. "Do machines like music?" he said, voice high but sure. Noah stepped to the rope. "They prefer rhythm," he said. "Same as people." The boy nodded hard, satisfied, and ran back to his class. The chaperone mouthed, "I'm sorry," and tugged him into place. Arya's phone buzzed. She glanced. The screen showed a push alert from the hospital billing portal. "Past due, $4,820. Her eyes moved to Noah's cuff. The gauze there had bled through a little more. A muted Rorschach. She didn't say anything. She just slipped WL-17 into his hands, the leather worn smooth to a shine on the spine. "Document your refusal and the reseal," she said. His pen made a whisper on the paper. "Refused to sign PR control." He added the time by the lobby clock's brutal honesty. "Sure? Ling San. Shizhou." The publicist appeared at Arya's shoulder. "We need him at the photo wall," she said, still smiling. "It's about representation." "He's represented in the file," Arya said. "Files don't trend," the publicist said. "Outrage does." Arya said, "Be careful what you farm." The publicist blinked and was gone, trailing a scent like grated lemon and ambition. Noah's phone buzzed next. The hospital app didn't bother with pleasantries. Final notice in red block letters fattened on his screen. A link offered payment plans in an optimistic blue. He clicked pay, watched the spinner revolve with saintly calm. Insufficient funds arrived without surprise. "Don't," Arya said quietly, reading the tilt of his jaw. "I will," he said, and slid the phone away. He took the envelope the guard had scanned from his pocket and opened it with a thumb. A photo slid into his palm, a still from the bay. His head bowed, Verina's mouth midward. Across the bottom, letters cut from a printer that thought it was a ransom note. Sign or stay out of frame. Arya held the photo by one corner as if heat lived in the ink. She slid it into a fresh sleeve. E6, she said. Chain open steen. Ling C. Whoosh sit. Noah nodded once. Bleach, he said. She sniffed. Yes. Printer, ink, and bleach. He felt the fork halves against his ribs again and wondered if you could tune a heart to a bill. He put his palm against WL-17's leather, as if the book could catch some of the load. Lunch, Arya said. Ledger, he said. He found a bench tucked beneath the stair, where the light from the atrium couldn't reach, and opened to a fresh line. He wrote in his slow, slanted hand, the kind he'd learned from a man who pressed hard enough to leave ghosts for the next page. Integrity, unpaid. He added a time. Sure, Shiar. Ling Sen. He closed the book and set his palm on it until the hum of the building settled back into a key he recognized. The crowd's applause upstairs traveled down the stairwell in waves, thinner each flight. He waited for it to die. When it did, the quiet felt like a room that had been emptied of furniture and left with its shape. He stayed with it until his pulse dropped into the same pocket. Then he stood, smoothed the page with the side of his hand, and walked back into the light. The IT room breathed cold. Racks blinked in regimented colors, a small city of eyes. The floor tiles lifted with a tool the shape of a question mark, and the air that came up smelled like dust, old cardboard, and winter. Arya Delgado swiped into the cage and let the door close on its slow hinge. No phones, the technician said, and pointed at a bin shaped like a bird bath. She placed her phone in the plastic nest, set VL-17 beside it, and held up a manila folder. Read only, she said. We're not here to break anything. You always say that, he said, but his hands already moved. I mirrored the surveillance last night. The VPN gateway logs are clean. Show me clean, she said. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching a screen fill with timestamps and IPs. The technician scrolled until the lines slowed. A single entry glowed faintly where Arya touched the glass with her fingernail. Not marking, just grazing. Linling, Sushasan, Shiryi, inbound through the company VPN, two-factor badge match to an internal account, file size small, path, shared, comms, uploads, temp. The hash string listed under the name was pretty, a row of hex that looked like order pretending to be calm. Who owns the badge? Arya asked. The tech clicked. A name, a photo, a face that looked neutral until you remembered it had smirked last week at a joke about mops. Pull the badge history, Arya said. It ran a query. The graph showed usage at normal hours, then a cluster of pings between midnight and 1. You know people fall asleep on their badges, he said. These doors are social. Who else was awake? She asked. He paged to the camera grid. The hallway vignettes moved in silence. Two guards trading coffee sips, a cleaner rolling a yellow bucket, a comms coordinator tracing the outline of a poster tube with her palm. Then the elevator camera caught a reflection glass turning into mirror, mirror into lens. A figure in a hoodie held a phone to a monitor and took a photo. The move was fast, trained. The hoodie slipped back just enough to flash a jawline she recognized. Freeze at 00. Susha-san. Lingzhou, Arya said. Headed. The frame sharpened, picked a target. The monitor showed a billing portal. The name at the top left belonged to a woman with a last name Noah didn't say unless he had to. A dollar amount glowed as if backlit by shame. Who had access? Arya asked. The technician licked his thumb and rubbed at a non-existent smudge. "Comms," he said finally. An internal slide deck went out to investors. Someone wanted a human angle. "Take me to the deck," she said. He hesitated. "It's off the grid." "Nothing is off," she said. "It's hiding in plain." He exhaled through his nose, the sound a tired radiator makes. "Give me 10. 5, she said. He grinned because he knew she'd win. Fingers tapped, screens flickered, permissions elevated and stepped back down. A link appeared like a rabbit out of a hat. It didn't fit in. He opened a keynote, labeled with an innocent date, and pressed spacebar. Slides marched, a hand holding a circuit board, a smile over a hard hat, and then a page with a screenshot of a hospital portal cropped at the edges so the name just sneaked in. The caption read, "Every hero has a bill." Arya's mouth didn't move. "Save a copy to governance," she said. "Hash it now. Write the number on the folder." "Do I make popcorn?" he said. "Make an audit," she said. He scribbled the hash string on the tab with a felt tip that bled through like bad news. He slid a second copy of the string onto a sticky note and handed it to her. "For your book," he said. She tucked the note inside WL-17 as if it could cure a fever. They left IT into a hallway that tried to smell like eucalyptus. The scent didn't disguise what the floor knew. She reached into the bird bath for her phone. It felt warm as a small animal. On the elevator, she pressed the key for executive. The doors closed on a rectangle of polished men's shoes that didn't hurry. The car began its climb. At floor 8, the doors opened on salvaged quiet. Verena Sloane stepped in as if she were changing seasons. A man in comms black slid in behind her and pressed himself into a corner like a coat that had learned to think. Verena's perfume traced cedar across the steel. Arya met her eyes once, then looked at the row of buttons. Noah watched the reflection in the panel angles sharpening, softening like weather. Verena broke the stillness with a sentence shaped like a compliment. "I'm told your diligence is admired," she said to Arya. "It gives donors comfort." "I don't work for donors," Arya said. "No," Verena said softly. "You work for the file." She turned slightly, watched Noah in the steel. "Integrity is theater," she said. "You're all very convincing." He kept his voice level. "Then you're acting with a corpse." Her yaff didn't move. The only sign anything had landed was a break in her blink rhythm. The elevator stopped at executive and presented them with a lobby that pretended leather could answer moral questions. Verena stepped out first, retinue in orbit. She didn't look back. Arya and Noah entered the governance room without knocking. The long table was set for a war of stationery. Pads staggered, pens aligned, microphones asleep. Miriam Vale sat at the far end with a glass of water she hadn't touched. She always poured before a hearing and left it full. It was a superstition she called discipline. "Good," Miriam said. "You brought the ledger and a present," Arya said. She slid the folder onto the table. E1. Miriam took a pen that looked heavier than it should. "Chain opens elf. Shabbat. Ling Si," she said, and wrote the exact words. She read the hash and wrote it again. She underlined once, not twice. "Source. VPN with badge match." Arya said, "Comms folder. Investor deck. The portal capture is real. Owner." Miriam asked, "Badge belongs to IT lead." Arya said, "But he wasn't the one holding the phone." Miriam's eyebrow made a tight arc. "So we have a lens, a motive, and a schedule that matches the lunch and learn for storytelling through data," Arya said. Miriam slid the folder down the table. "Exactly straight." E2. Arya placed the printout of the deck. Investors saw the mock. Someone thought tragedy would sing. Miriam opened WL-17 herself and wrote the line as if carving. She placed a small red dot in the margin, a private code that meant this will bite back. She looked at Noah. Do you consent to me saying your name when I fire someone? I'd rather you show the video, he said. Noted, Miriam said, which, in her mouth, meant law. A governance analyst appeared at the door with a laptop hugged to his chest like contraband. We traced the phone, he said, breath shallow. It's the comms intern. She used the office Epson. Bleach wiped the edges. The printer had its own signature in the nozzle pattern. Chain, Miriam said. The analyst handed Arya a new sleeve. E3, Arya murmured, printing the number in the top right with block neatness. She dropped the photo inside. Noah bent over the engine. Verena, a still life of certainty, and smoothed the plastic over ink as if sealing heat. Miriam's water stayed full. Bring the intern, she said. No cameras. The girl came in with the small smile of someone who had not yet been taught what not smiling does in rooms like this. She sat where Arya indicated. She stared at the microphone as if it might bite. What's your name? Miriam asked. Violet. The girl said. What were you told to do? Violet, Miriam asked. Make people care, Violet said, the words spilling like beads. Did you think stealing medical data would help? Miriam asked. Violet shook her head, then nodded. Some third motion trapped between. They called it a composite. Like a movie. They said no one would know. Who said? Miriam asked. The girl's eyes flicked toward the door, then away. Agency, she said. The contractor. They wanted stakes. Arya slid a photo across the table. This is a stake, she said. Ink and bleach. You printed it. Violet's throat moved. I'm sorry, she said. They said it was content. I thought content is everything. Miriam capped her pen. Content is not a defense, she said. And the sentence sat on the wood, like a new law trying on its boots. Arya breathed out through her teeth. We'll need the Epson, she said to the analyst, and the agency's brief. Chain, the analyst asked. E4, Arya said. She dated the corner, wrote the time to the second, and passed the sleeve across. Noah said nothing. He watched Violet's hands twist the hem of her sweater into rope and back. He thought about the tuning fork halves in his pocket and how they only rang when they touched, even broken. Violet looked at him like a kid reaching for permission. I didn't know it was his mom, she said. I swear. He believed her. It didn't help. Someone did, he said. Miriam's water remained full. We suspend comms access pending verification, she said. We notify legal. We notify the hospital. We notify the mother. She looked at Noah. You or me? I'll do it, he said, and already felt the sentence in his lungs. They adjourned with no gavel, because the sound of chairs made enough ceremony. Arya walked out with the ledger clutched like a small animal saved from traffic. In the elevator down, no one spoke. The car hummed with electricity, and the weight of 4 people thinking about frames. At the 3rd floor, it stopped. The doors opened on an empty hallway with a vending machine glowing like a chapel. A bag of chips hung caught by one corner, refusing to fall. They stepped out. Violet turned left toward HR. The analyst turned right toward a cabinet where printers sleep after sins. Arya went forward, toward the cold rooms and the numbers that didn't lie as fast as people. Noah stayed where he was and listened. Silence sat on the hallway like fog. The vending machine thrummed a low C. Far off, a cleaning cart squeaked in 3 to 4 times. He pressed the tuning fork halves together in his pocket. They made a sound too small for microphones, a thread of note that seemed to draw a line on air. He let them fall apart, and the note went with them. At the end of the corridor, A glass door reflected back a faint double of his body, then erased it as the automatic tint shifted with the afternoon sun. For a second he watched himself disappear and reappear, the building choosing when he was visible. He didn't move until the tint settled. Then he walked toward the cold. The conference room had the hush of a courtroom that rented its furniture. Volnut table, microphones asleep on goosenecks, carafes sweating into their coasters. The wall of glass showed a smudge of city, as if weather had been applied with a dull brush. Miriam Vale sat at the head, hair pinned like a strong opinion. She placed a single sheet of paper at true north, then aligned the glass of water she would not drink. Governance convenes at 14. Ling ling, ling ling, she said, watching the digits on a tabletop clock fall into place. Record. The red LED woke. A ceiling camera blinked its one tired eye. Two assistants settled with the rustle of unwrapped candy. Aria Delgado slid WL-17 onto the wood, opened to a fresh page, uncapped her pen like a surgeon. Verena Sloane entered with 3 people in her orbit. Legal. Comms. An executive who did not blink often. Her blazer was the kind that made Lint surrender. She smiled as if stepping onto a stage. "You called this hearing," Miriam said. "I called an opportunity." Verena said, "To align narratives with reality. Reality will be grateful," Miriam said dryly. "Please sit." Verena did not. Not yet. She set a tablet on the table and tapped until a logo appeared. "Before we burden ourselves with paranoia," she said, "we should hear the truth from the source." Arias Ben Paust. "Whose source?" "Ours," Verena said. "An AI transcript. Clean. Uncut." She looked at the ceiling eye. "Play file VTGOV01. Speakers filled with room tone. Then a voice both familiar and off by half a degree. It was Noah's voice, clipped into obedience. "I don't need sign-off. I bypassed the procedure. The seal number was irrelevant. We do what works." Aria's jaw tilted a fraction. Noah looked at his own hands on the table as if expecting ink to appear there. Miriam didn't look at anyone. "Pause," she said. Silence settled like a paperweight. Outside the glass, a gull paused in midair, then glided out of frame. "That's not the working copy," Aria said. "It's what the data heard." Verena said, "Your ledger fetish aside. We cannot run a company on fetish." "Ms. Sloane," Miriam said mildly, "respect for kinks is not on today's agenda." A smile moved under Aria's eyes and left. Verena tapped the tablet again. "There's more," she said. "The system detected tone patterns consistent with deception. I'm sorry to disappoint the cult of the Blue Book." Miriam turned her head. The only signal she was troubled. "Ms. Delgado." Aria raised the folder she'd brought from the cold rooms and slid it across the table. "E1, she said. Hash. 9F3B. 76 day 1. Source. Raw capture from Bay 2 overhead mic. Lingba 05 to 08. Shiwu. Locker SEA 9. Witness signatures on chain. D. M. V. Miriam opened the folder, checked the hash, written in felt tip against the print. She nodded once. "Proceed." Aria connected a cable with a click that sounded like consent. The same scene filled the screen. Noah's back. Verena's profile. The curve of the engine under lights. The audio came up unhandsome and honest. "I don't have sign-off," Noah's voice said. "Breath in it. Heat in it. I'm asking for it now. The seal number matters. If we break chain, we break proof." The room took the sentence like a pill dry. "Your AI clipped clauses and welded them." Arya said. It listened like a gossip. We log at the level of air. Verina's smile thinned. You can torture vowels until they sing any hymn. Arya did not look at her. Check the checksum, she said. VTGOVA. One won't match our ledger. Miriam pivoted the tablet with 2 fingers. It, she said quietly, a woman at the far end, shoulders like a borrowed coat, opened a laptop and typed in the posture of prayer. VT a. Eins generated via Auto Summarizer. She read, cut points at 00. Ling Si. Linling. Shusan. Linling. Arshiyi. No ledger reference. She blinked. No custody record. Chainless files have no standing, Miriam said. We agreed on that when we pretended to be adults. Verena sat then, carefully, as if the chair were a witness. These are administrative choices, she said. I made them to protect our investors. We cannot let raw feeds weaponize confusion. We have a product to ship and a runway to extend. We're not a church. We are a lab, Miriam said. Labs keep pain and data in the same jar. Is this a poetry reading? Verena said softly. Or a company. Noah hadn't spoken. He didn't plan to. He watched the tablet's black bezel reflect a thin version of his face. He thought of the tuning fork halves in his pocket, the way they made a pure note only when allowed to touch. However briefly, however broken. Miriam tapped the page with the blunt end of her pen. We have enough to proceed. Proceed to what? The comms executive asked, eyebrows trying on outrage. Corrective action, Miriam said. First, the summarizer is suspended. Raw audio will never be edited without a ledger key. Second, governance owns the chain, not not growth. Verena's gaze went glassy. You're overreaching, she said. The board did not appoint you to perform a coup. The board appointed me to prevent one, Miriam said. She turned to Noah. Mr. Boats, Mercer, under who do you accept technical direction? Noah lifted his eyes. He kept his voice at the temperature of the table. Whoever points at the file before they point at a camera. Miriam's mouth acknowledged the line with a quarter smile. Noted. Verena leaned in. The diamonds at her ears clicked against each other when she turned her head. Let me be less charming, she said. We are not a legal clinic. We can't slow every decision to a crawl. You want to run a car company with a monastery's pace. Monasteries built Europe, Miriam said. With ledgers, Arya slid a second folder. E2, she said. Comms deck to investors. Slide titled Every Hero Has a Bill. Unredacted capture included a patient name. We have printer signature on the Epson. The intern admits to process. Agency brief instructs raise stakes via personal angle. Endus, the comms executive's pen stopped moving. He didn't look up. Verena put a palm flat on the table. Fingers spread like someone measuring a wound. This is small, she said. Silly. Fixable. I'll handle it offline. No, Miriam said. The word arrived without decoration. We'll handle it in the minutes. For the first time since entering, Verena's face showed a working emotion. It wasn't anger. It was calculation slowed by weight. The door opened on a hinge that needed oil. Hans Mayer, the investor who never blinked, stepped in with rain drying along his coat's hem. He nodded to Miriam, then to the table in general, a benediction for nobody. Apologias, he said. Traffic believes itself inevitable. His English wore Munich like a good suit. We're in the middle. Miriam said. So am I, Hans said, dropping into a chair 2 segments down from Verena. He took in the folders, the clock, the tablet, and the shadow of a gull moving along the glass like a smudge. Your concern, Miriam asked. Our money, he said pleasantly, and the thing that makes it reproduce, trust. Verena pivoted. Hans, we're aligned. We are not, he said. still pleasant. I do not invest in miracles. I invest in boring things that work the same way twice. I watched your live stream. I read the edits. They smell like vanity. Silence put its elbows on the table. Hans looked at Noah with a kind of curiosity you'd normally reserve for a new instrument. He said, what do you need to make boring? A chain that can't be faked by speed, Noah said, and the right to say wait without losing my badge. Hans nodded as if someone had read him a recipe he recognized. Give him the line, he said to Miriam. Munich, with authority, double his pay, or he'll spend his nights repairing the morality you break by day. Verena laughed, the sound brief and brittle. You think a man who bleeds on couplings should run European compliance? I think a man who noticed the coupling before the camera noticed him should run whatever touches the coupling, Hans said. Miriam wrote in the ledger, provisional appointment, N. Mercer, diagnostic lead, Munich line, condition, governance custody of evidence chain. She underlined once. Effective now, she said. Verena's mouth made a shape, then didn't use it. You can't just. I can, Miriam said. So can you? If and when the file approves of you again. Verena's hand moved toward the tablet. She tapped, summoning the doctored transcript, like an animal called by a whistle. The screen filled with Noah's voice in pieces. She tilted the tablet toward Hans. This is the rawness he worships, she said. Hans watched 10 seconds. He frowned with his whole face. It jumps, he said, like a child skipping the ugly words. Aria's pen moved, not looking down. Note for the minutes. Investor observed discontinuity by ear. By ear, Hans repeated, satisfied. My engineer's grandfather tuned V12S with a fork he kept in his pocket. He said a lyre could hold still, but a frequency couldn't. The sentence hung. Noah felt the halves of metal against his ribs, as if a stranger had named them in a different language. Miriam closed the folder on E1 and E2 with a calm that read as power. We're done for today, she said. Actions recorded. Appeals possible only with countersigned evidence. Verena stood, then sat again as if her legs had misheard the instruction. She looked at the water she'd refused earlier and reached for it, then withdrew her hand without touching the glass. No one moved. The room waited for the scrape of chairs that would end the spell. The city beyond the glass erased a plain with cloud. Noah slid his hand into his pocket and pressed the two halves of the fork together. They kissed once. An inaudible click. He didn't need to hear it to know it had happened. On the far wall, the red LED blinked twice and went dark. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded, like a sealed box, carried carefully toward a door. Rain needled the roof until the bay sounded like a drum. The sodium lamps threw a bruised light. Yellow pushed through damp air. Condensation beaded along conduit runs. Every wire seemed to sweat. Checklist from the top, Aria said, voice steady over the hiss. She stood at the workstation with WL-17 open, pen poised, telemetry handshake. Green, Ethan said, tapping a thumbnail against the console. All channels alive. Noah Mercer drifted a palm an inch above the engine's casing. Warmth rolled off it like breath. The hum settled somewhere between the bones of his wrist and the soft part of his throat. She knows we're here, he said. Verena watched from the mezzanine, a silhouette railing the length of glass. Two board members stood a step back, hands hidden somewhere overhead. A camera blinked its red assurance. Bring her to 50, Aria said. Ethan ramped. The note rose clean, then held in a narrow throat. The numbers on the monitors walked themselves into position, smug again. Noah traced the line with his ears, not his eyes. At 65, the air went thinner. The HVAC coughed. A paramedic team stood by the door because someone had read a risk matrix and then pretended not to care. South manifold temperature. Arya asked. Nominal, Ethan said. His voice tried for casual and landed on careful. Noah kept his hand an inch off the skin. Heat licked his palm. A faint tick-tick like a moth trapped in a lampshade. Hid under the hum and would not leave. He tilted his head. There, he said. Which there? Ethan asked. South, Noah said. Down 2 ribs. She's off. I'm reading fine. Ethan said. She's lying to you, Noah said. Verina's heels clicked along the mezzanine as she paced up to 80. She called down, let's stop flirting. Arya didn't look up. On my count, she said. Ethan. Ready, he said. 3, 2, up. The engine answered. The note leaned forward. The racks shivered in sympathy. A light at the far corner of the bay winked, caught a drop sliding down a coolant line, then swallowed it. The smell shifted hot metal and something sweet that didn't belong. Noah put his shoulder into the sound, as if weight could steady it. Hold at 80, he said. Ethan's fingers hovered. Copy. Arya's pen scratched. Hold at 80%. Sheryi. Lingzhou. San Sheryi. Verina came halfway down the stairs and stopped where a camera could find her profile. You confected drama last time, she said mildly. Let's not get addicted to it. The paramedics looked bored. The way professionals look at boredom like a pet. Noah watched their eyes, not their posture. One had the wrong shoes for running. 85. Arya said, up. Ethan said, and the engine moved like a train cresting a hill, the weight shifting from back to front. The note thickened, almost a growl. On monitor 3, a graph bent politely, and then thought about disobedience. The sensor on the south line flashed once, and then steadied itself, as if embarrassed. Call it. Arya said. Minor oscillation, Ethan said. Within. Noah took 1 step left. The floor felt different there. A thinner tremor, as if the concrete itself was taking sides. He crouched, pressed the heel of his hand against the bracket that held the manifold, and let the vibration climb into his bone. The tick-tick returned. Faster now. A child's fingernails on aluminum. 85. Verina said again. Or is fear our new protocol? Arya's eyes flicked up. Up, she said. Up, Ethan said. The south sensor spiked hard, turned the graph into a ladder, and then punched a hiss tore a strip out of the hum. Something invisible collected in the air and made the lungs do math. The paramedic's boredom left his face like someone opened a window. CO2 release. Arya said, South line. Her pen stayed moving. Sheryi. 02 spike. Autodump. Ethan said, crushing 4 keys in one hand. Solenoids clank. Valves did what they had been trained to do. The hiss sharpened, then softened, then turned into a heavy exhale. Mask, someone said. Wait, Noah said, and regretted the word as soon as it left his mouth. A hiss of a different kind answered. Human this time, Manny from Calibration Young. Careful, overeager stumbled backward from the south rail and found a gap in the world that had not existed a second earlier. He tried to breathe and forgot how. His eyes found Arya, then Noah, then nothing. Noah moved before he could think. He slapped his palm against the chest pocket where the small body cam lived. Rec in red felt the click like a loud thought. He kept his left hand on the engine bracket and reached with his right for Manny's collar. The metal smelled sharper. The air thinned as if someone had swapped it out for a look-alike. Get him, Noah said to the paramedic who wasn't slow. I have him, the man said. Where's your mask? Working, Noah said, and hoped the camera caught the smile in the lie. The paramedic guided Manny to the edge of the bay, snapped a mask to his face, found the bottle, turned the valve, all in a grammar his body didn't need a mind for. Manny's eyes remembered solidity and stayed. Someone opened a bay door. Rain wrote a new pattern along the concrete. Arya called out settings like a pilot reading altitudes. Dump complete. South Pack isolating. Ethan. Confirm. Confirmed, Ethan said, sweat on the edge of his upper lip. Verena walked down the last steps and stopped shy of the yellow line painted on the floor. The line shouted live in chipped letters. She didn't cross. How much downtime? She asked. Her voice was concern auditioning for empathy. Noah's hand throbbed where it met the bracket. He eased his fingers loose a centimeter at a time. The tick-tick-tick refused to quit. He reached into his shirt with 2 fingers, found the linen bag, and pinched the tuning fork halves through the cloth. A reflex more than a plan. He pressed them together. They rang against bone, tiny and obstinate, and the note came in wrong, a flat that made his teeth notice. Not yet, he said. Arya's pen kept eating paper. We're at Anardeg. Sirar. Sisher, she said. Do you require a halt? Noah. Noah looked at Manny. The kid lifted a hand, thumb half up. His eyes tried to be brave and got halfway. Hold, Noah said. Don't climb. Keep 85. I want to hear it lie. Ethan set his mouth, holding. The hiss died to a whisper. The red on the graph turned orange, then yellow, as if it were embarrassed to be seen at all. Numbers found their posture and stood up straight. The hum tried to return to its key and missed by a hair. Mark the pre-fault state, Arya said. Backfill from the body cam once we decon. The paramedic touched Manny's shoulder. You okay? Yeah, Manny said, which meant I want to be. Verena's eyes tracked the camera on Noah's chest, like it was a bug she couldn't swat. Turn that off, she said. We have privacy exposures. Arya didn't look at her. It's evidence, she said. Of what? Verena said, smile bright enough to light a wound. Of us, Arya said. Of the choice. Verena laughed once. A clean sound that made the paramedic glance up because clean sounds are dangerous in rooms like this. Compassion is not a KPI. Ms. Delgado. Today it is, Arya said, and wrote the sentence down because if you don't write some sentences down they pretend they never happened. Noah slid his hand off the bracket. The metal had left a pattern in his skin like a map he couldn't read yet. He pulled his glove on now, late, and set his palm flat again, not because it helped, but because it told him the truth. Without the vanity a screen loved. Ethan, he said, give me a sweep, 200 RPM up, then down, slow as saying sorry. Ethan complied. The note bent and straightened like a gymnast who had picked up a limp. The South sensor behaved as if a bureaucrat watched it. The rest of the board watched too, not knowing what to lie about. Noah closed his eyes. It was easier with one sense punished. He pictured the manifold, the thread he had learned to respect, the bracket that shook just enough to betray its machining, the seal that should have held like a gentleman and hadn't. He opened his eyes. Calibration was set wrong, he said, or told to be wrong. By whom? Verena asked, mild and sharp. By a person, Noah said. Arya underlined something only she could see. Her pen left a deeper groove on that line. The paramedic lifted Manny's mask a moment to check the color of his lips. Better, he said to nobody. Rain moved along the open door like a curtain that couldn't decide which direction was in. Noah leaned into the console, shoulder to shoulder with Ethan. Freeze the last 30 seconds, he said. Now isolate south. Run me harmonics overlay if you love me. Ethan's fingers obeyed without comment. The spectrograph painted a band of blues and greens with a yellow seam where the lie had lived. Noah tapped it. There, he said. Want a name? Ethan asked. I want a wrench, Noah said, and pointed to a drawer. Ethan handed him a tool warm from the room. Noah eased under the manifold, found the support bracket, and tightened a quarter turn that felt like putting a book back on the shelf it came from. The whisper of metal against metal sounded like two strangers deciding to be polite. He breathed. The tick-tick died. He stood, shoulder a little darker where the spray had kissed him. He pressed the fork halves together again. The note climbed into true and sat there. Log, he said. Arya's pen didn't slow. Tick resolved. After bracket adjust 11. Sherlock. Linzhou. CO2 event documented. Bodycam wreck. She paused, then wrote a line in the margin in her smallest script. Compassion overrides protocol once. Verena saw the pause, not the words. Reset the narrative, she said, and the sentence tried to pass for a prayer. Reset the vents, Arya said. Then we'll talk. The paramedics wheeled Manny toward the open door, where clean air waited like something you could spend. Manny lifted his hand in a shy wave that broke in the middle. Noah turned the body cam off. The red light winked out, and the bay fell back a shade. He slid the camera into a bag, sealed it with a sticker that made a small kiss noise. E7, Arya said, taking the bag. Jane opens elf. Sir T. Sancha-san. She looked at Noah. You good. I'm a bracket, he said. Tighter now. Ethan snorted. Romance. Reality, Noah said. They brought the engine down in careful steps. The note unspooled, losing weight as it went, until the room sounded like rain and ductwork again. The floor kept a memory of vibration a while longer, like a bed after someone stands up. Verena stepped across the yellow live line at last, heels clicking like metronome teeth. She looked at Noah's glove, then at the bag in Arya's hand. Tell a tidy story, she said. Arya closed WL-17. The leather made a sound that felt like agreement with itself. We'll tell the same story twice, she said. That's tidy. The bay doors shuddered shut against the weather. The hum that had filled the morning softened into a residual that lived in the ribs. Noah took the linen bag from his pocket and touched the fork halves again, not to test, but to remember. The note rose, true, and faded. He pocketed the sound before anyone noticed. They dressed the auditorium like a promise. Lights nested in the catwalks, soft enough to flatter, bright enough to erase pores. A screen the size of a wall floated above a stage set with two chairs nobody would sit in. The podium gleamed. Someone sprayed the wood with lemon. The scent clung to the curtains. Script is locked, the publicist said, pacing rows 2 and 3 with a tablet. Arya hits the refrain. Verena closes with the pledge. Noah. She looked up, found him in the aisle. Presence preferred. Not necessary. Arya Delgado stood backstage. VLs 17 unter her Arm. Hair pinned, so nothing could fall out by accident. She flicked the corner of a page with her thumb. We'll see what's necessary, she said. Mic check. The audio tech called 1-2 belief. Noah waited in the wings where the rigging smelled like rope and hot dust. The tuning fork halves pressed through his pocket, as if trying to be more than they were. He pressed back with 2 fingers, keeping them quiet. A production runner edged by him, stopped. You're the guy, she said, as if naming an animal. Which one? He asked. The one in the loop, she said, nodding toward the screen where the edit rolled. Smile. Engine. Applause. Cut. They told us to keep you out of frame unless you hold very still. I don't, he said. Same, she said, and disappeared with a coil of XLR over her shoulder. The room filled with a curated crowd press, staff, a line of interns in dark sweaters. Security took their positions with faces like screensavers. The live ticker clock at the back of the room ticked toward air. Shaba, Woosha Joe, Sushawu, Shaba, Woosha Joe, Woosher, Shaba, Woosha Joe, Woosha Woo. At 19, Ling Ling, Ling Ling. The red light above the center camera woke. Applause surfaced, bright and obedient. Verena Sloane glided to the podium, the white jacket again, the refusal to shine anywhere but where she decided. "Good evening," she said, and her smile made a small electric sound in the lavalier. "We promised transparency. We built it," she said. "We promised accountability. We sealed it. Tonight we add something else. Gratitude." She pivoted left, inviting the audience to clap for themselves. They did. Arya stepped to the second microphone on the left, script in hand, eyes on the second tier where the governance people sat. The publicist made a small circling motion with a hand wrap the bow and mouthed the words along with the first line. Arya didn't read them. She set the paper aside on the podium, palm flat. "If listening counts as rebellion," she said, "let's make it policy." A ripple moved through the room like a shiver under skin. The publicist froze, smile fixed to her teeth. Verena's eyes didn't move, but the muscles around them thought about it. Arya continued, voice clean. "Even, we will publish raw data alongside edited summaries. We will log every seal, and the ledger will be open to independent audit. We will slow down when a human asks for time. We will prefer boring truth to exciting fiction." Phones went up, small constellations catching, recording. The screen behind them split. On the left, Arya. On the right, a live feed of a status page that showed "Evidence Chain Online" in plain font. No logo, no flourish. "In the last 48 hours, Arya said, we corrected a mislabel. We caught a clip that clipped. We protected a person before a narrative. We expect you to hold us to that." The publicist's headset hand trembled, then steadied as she heard her own voice in her ear telling someone else to smile. Verena stepped forward, hand to mic. The move, elegant, automatic. "Respect for process has always been our culture," she said. "We're pleased to formalize what our people live." Arya looked at her, and the look wasn't hostility. It was arithmetic. She pivoted back to the audience. Questions. Hands rose. A reporter with a notepad instead of a phone stood. "Are you admitting a data breach?" Arya nodded once. "I'm confirming an attempted manipulation. We've contained it. Who's responsible?" "The file will tell us," she said. "When it does, you'll know." She lifted WL-17 and tapped the cover with her knuckles. The sound cut across the room like a muted gavel. "We don't point before we prove." Another hand. Lower. A community radio host with an old mic, and the look of someone who still kept tape. "Will the people in your stories be paid?" "Yes," Arya said. "No more free suffering." Verena smiled again, finding a way to claim the yes. "We're leading," she said, as always. The questions thinned into the sort that fill time. The red light died. Applause rose and slid away. The publicist sagged half an inch, and then straightened like a curtain finding its pleats. Backstage, the air felt cooler, as if the room had exhaled. Arya closed the book and blew a breath across the spine, a ritual against smudging. Noah joined her near the props table, where duplicate water bottles waited with their labels aligned. "You went off script," he said. "So did you," she said. "This morning, we're even." "Press'll hate you for saying law out loud," he said. "Let them," she said. "It photographs well." Her phone buzzed. She glanced, then showed him the screen without commentary. "Hospital Portal. Final notice." The same red as the live light a minute ago. Under it, "Pay now" in patient blue. "Don't," he said. She slid the phone away. "I won't," she said. "It's not my debt to buy." He nodded. "It's mine." He moved into the shadow of the rigging to make the call, fingers steady, voice smoother than his throat felt. The automated system spoke with a nurse's kindness in its vowels. He keyed in numbers, chose options, consented to a recording for quality. The total sat there like a person at the edge of a chair. $4,820. He tapped pay and watched a wheel turn and then go still. Insufficient funds. For a second, the sound in the hallway damped all the way down, as if someone had laid felt across the world. He breathed once. Again. Okay, he said to no one. He opened his notes app and wrote, loss logged 19, Sushati, Sharar. He added WL17 below it, then closed the phone. He didn't look at Arya. On the stage, a cleanup crew rolled a mop across the floor in long, efficient strokes. The lemon on the wood kiosk had soured into something sweet and tired. Come with me, Arya said. They took the service elevator to the network operations room, where screens mapped the quiet geography of 1,000 dependencies. The supervisor looked up, surprised to see governance at his glass door. We didn't knock anything over, he said. We need the firewall logs. Arya said, interval beginning 1930, targeted at personal banking domains. We don't log personnel, he said. You log traffic, she said. Show me the strings. We'll separate the people from the pipes. He hesitated, then typed. Lines of text appeared, marching neat. Here? Look. The table filled with outbound calls at 19. Susha-san. Lingzhou. Shizhou. Susha-san. Shiyi. Shizhou. Susha-si. Nil Sama workstation. Same Mac. A device name. PR Stage 2. He tapped to expand. A process name wore a friendly brand. A plug-in leaked a smile of its own. Stage machine. Arya asked. Comms runs graphics from there. He said. Pull quotes. Live overlays. That kind of. Noah leaned over the desk. He didn't need the words. He knew the rhythm. Scan. Inject. Capture. Drain. They hit me between applause. Impossible to prove intent. The supervisor said. Bad design. Not sabotage. Somebody left a door swinging. Arya's pen ticked a line on her legal pad anyway. Shizhou. Susha-san. Élevé. Exfil. Attempt. Source. PR Stage 2. She lifted her head. Mirror it. Beg it. We're opening E-with. The supervisor swallowed. Chain. Now, she said. He shut down the box with a series of keystrokes that looked like a prayer learned in childhood. He slid the chassis from the rack with both hands, set it on an anti-static mat, and reached for a tamper sleeve he probably hadn't expected to use this month. Arya watched the clock in the corner tick seconds like small, hard rain. She sealed the bag with calm fingers, wrote the time. Shizhou. Wushi. Sancha-san. She initialed A.D. She held the Sharpie out. Witness. Noah took it. Printed N.M. in letters he'd learned from a man who pressed hard. The tip squeaked on plastic. Do I call legal? The supervisor asked. You will, Arya said. After we call the hospital to warn them which door someone tried. She dialed. Spoke evenly. Gave names only when asked. Her words landed steady on the paper of the world. When she hung up, she set the phone down with precision, as if any harder would break something they still needed. We're done, she said. For now. They stepped back into the hallway. The lemon smell had given up entirely, leaving the building's true breath ozone. Carpet glue, coffee. A janitor pushed a quiet vacuum along a strip of carpet that didn't look dirty. He nodded at Noah like a man recognizing a dialect. You all right? The man asked, under the motor's hum. I will be, Noah said. Arya didn't ask what that meant. They rode the elevator down to the street without speaking. Outside, the night had the blue of an old Bruges. A line of rideshare cars hummed at the curb. A woman argued softly into a phone. Abu Sayyid. The hospital sat 10 minutes away on a hill that thought it was a moral. Noah stood at the foot of it and looked up. He didn't go in. He didn't have anything to bring except words. And tonight, words had been used for other people's pictures. Arya offered him a coffee from a stand that smelled like cinnamon and burnt milk. He shook his head. "I want Kiet," he said. They found it under the overhang by the ambulance bay. The traffic noise softened by distance, the night air clean enough to lift. He took the linen bag from his pocket and tapped the fork halves against his thumb. They gave back a sound you could mistake for silence until you leaned in. He pressed them together and felt the vibration in his bones. It lasted longer than the money. "This is the part you don't film," he said. Arya nodded. "This is the part that matters." A door bunged. A paramedic wheeled an empty gurney past, rubber tires whispering on concrete. Somewhere inside, a monitor beeped steady. The building inhaled. Noah put the fork halves back in the bag, and the bag back in his pocket, and his hand back on the pocket to keep it from leaving. He looked up at a square of sky, clipped by architecture, and thought of a ceiling he couldn't fix, that covered people he loved. "Tomorrow," Arya said, as if placing a coin into a palm. "Tomorrow," he said. They walked down the hill to the corner where the bus stopped. The windshield reflected their bodies as two smudges in motion. The driver nodded. The doors folded like a mouth, making a vow. They rode back in a lighted box, while the city thinned beyond the glass. At his stop, Noah stood and touched the fork through his jacket one more time. He marked the time in his head the way he did at the ledger when he couldn't reach it. Shizhou, Sushitsi. 12 would live there. Ink later. For now it lived in the body. He stepped into the night. The bus hissed and went. The sound hung on the street, one beat longer than it needed to, then faded into the kind of quiet that wasn't empty. It was waiting. The envelope waited on Noah's doormat like a patient animal. Plain brown. No stamp. A rubber band instead of glue. When he bent, the hallway smelled like old varnish and rain pushed through the stairwell. He slipped a key under the band and lifted the flap. A photo slid into his hand. Grainy, black and white. Verina's mouth caught mid-smirk. His head bent at the engine. Across the bottom, toner letters cut into a line. "Stay in your lane." Noah stood still until the stair light clicked off. The building hummed around him, refrigerators, plumbing, a neighbor's television, leaking laughter through drywall. He turned the photo over. Bleach had ghosted the edges. His thumb came away smelling like a hospital rag. He didn't call Arya. He took a picture with his work phone. Timestamp on Lingxi, Shirar, Sushi. Then he locked his door and walked the 10 blocks to the plant. The bay was still waking. Forklifts yawned. The lights warmed from gray to yellow. Arya waited at the side door wearing a jacket that read, "Governance," in stitching so small it dared you to squint. "Talk," she said. He held the photo in 2 fingers. She didn't touch it. "E9, she said, already opening a fresh sleeve. "Chain, opens 07, Sushi, Lingsan." She tilted her head, sniffed. "Bleach, and a hint of citrus. Cheap. Toner's heavy." Noah said. "Dot pattern will sing," she said. "Yellow tracking. Every printer prints a signature to brag it exists." They walked to the lab where Arya kept the small gear that made lawyers obedient. She set the photo under a lens and turned on a blue LED so dim it felt like an apology. The screen filled with a million polite dots. A star field, pretending at art. "Arrays 12 by 8, she said. "Epson. Office grade." "Comms," Noah said. She didn't answer. She adjusted focus, captured 3 frames, and saved the file with a name that was a math problem. "We'll confirm," she said. "Then we'll knock." They knocked. The comms bullpen smelled like coffee and warm plastic. Screens wore decks like makeup. An espresso machine hissed at nothing. Nobody looked guilty, because everybody had been trained to understand guilt as a performance. Arya held up the sleeve. "We need to inspect printers," she said. "All of them." The lead, Alistair, hair careful, smile rehearsed, spread his hands. "We love governance," he said. "It lets us get back to work." "Open the cabinets," Arya said. Interns began to move. Violet's chair scraped. She didn't look up. A junior contractor with a lanyard labeled Guest tugged a paper tray free and set it on a table like a loaf. Arya crouched beside the first printer. She slid out the waste tank, tapped a fleck of yellow onto a glass slide with a fingernail. She kept blunt. She scanned while the room watched. On the monitor, dots arranged themselves into a confession. "Unit ID matches our sample," she said without turning. "Serial C70 negative 4491. Alistair laughed, throat tight. "Everyone prints everything," he said. "It's a printer. Everyone doesn't wipe with bleach." Noah said. Arya stood. "Conference room. Now, please." They sat a contractor across from her at a table that had witnessed mediocre sandwiches become morale. The contractor's badge said Tessa. She held herself like someone still learning how to match her voice to her body. Arya didn't start with the photo. She slid a blank form forward. "State your name for the minutes." Tessa looked at the microphone, the little red light unblinking. "This a March." "Title?" Arya asked. "Content associate." "This a Sid." Agency side. "Who instructed you to print this photo?" Arya asked. Tessa's throat moved. "No one," she said. "I was told to pull assets for a sentiment test." "By whom?" Arya asked. "Alistair." "This a Sid." Eyes flicking to the glass. "He said we needed heat." Alistair folded his arms. "We needed a spine," he said. "Stories require stakes. People are not stakes." Noah said. Alistair shrugged. An elegant motion that tasted like citrus. "Audiences disagree." Arya tapped the photo sleeve with a nail. "Why the bleach?" "Tessa, they told us to wipe." "This," said. "Fingerprint paranoia," said. "Governance likes to play CSI." Arya's pen made a single small line. "Tessa, instructed to wipe." She slid a second sheet forward. "Sign that this is your statement." Tessa took the pen. The sound of it on paper had a tiny squeal, like a docile animal complaining. She signed, then pushed the pen back with 2 fingers. "The way you return a borrowed blade." Arya looked through the glass at the bullpen. Verena stood framed in the doorway like someone painted to be taller, hands in pockets. Eyes soft for the camera that didn't exist. "Ms. Sloane," Arya said. Verena entered with a smile you could pour on cereal. "What fresh integrity," she said. "Your contractor printed threats." Arya said. "From comms equipment." "Tired trope," Verena said. "If someone intended harm, they'd be smarter." Noah set his palms on the table. "Flat. Smart enough to route a bank scrape through PR stage 2, he said. "Smart enough to leak a hospital portal. Smart enough to clip my words." Verena's eyes flicked toward his chest, as if the body cam might be there again. "Even now, you insist on personalizing," she said. "We tell stories." "Because people don't buy data." Arya slid the printer serial note across. "You'll surrender C70 negative 4491, she said. "Now." Verena's smile didn't move. Her fingers moved instead. 2 tiny taps on her thigh, like Morse code. "We comply," she said. E10. Arya murmured, sealing the evidence bag around the unit with a crisp zipper. "Chain opens 09. Arshar. Lingwu." She wrote it large, then added A.D. Her pen hovered. "Witness." Tessa's hand went up without meaning to. Arya handed her the Sharpie. She wrote T.N. M. Small, then looked at Verena as if expecting the trick to hit. It did, but not where she thought. Verena's smile faltered 1 millimeter. It was enough. You fired the wrong bullet, Arya said quietly. Am I on trial? Verena said. Or is this a tantrum? Neither. Arya said. It's a record. Verena leaned forward, the light finding new polish on her cheekbones. Stay in your lane, she said to Noah, nearly kind. Don't let a minor elevation swell you. He answered, without heat. You built the lanes, and you're very good at sweeping them, she said. Arya pushed back her chair. We're done here. In the hallway, she and Noah paused by the window where the atrium made a picture out of everything. Down below, interns arranged chairs into a circle for a workshop titled Storytelling Through Stakes. The irony tried to be funny and failed. Why push threats? Noah asked, not angry, just tired. It's a control tactic, Arya said. Create fear. Shape the beat. Can we shape back? He asked. Only if we keep boring, she said. Boring is armor. They walked to the far stairwell where the building forgot to be stylish. Concrete, handrails scuffed by hand, grit that didn't apologize for itself. The quiet here belonged to air. Noah took the linen bag from his pocket and pressed the tuning fork halves together. The note rose like breath on glass and held a beat. Arya listened. Flat, she said. Just a hair, he said. She leaned against the rail, gaze tilted down to the lower landing. We'll interview Violet again, she said. Without Alistair, people say different truths when the room changes shape. Use your fork, he said. She smiled. I prefer pencils. They don't ring, but they leave grooves. They found Violet in the corner of the cafeteria, staring at a paper cup. The cup had a lipstick print that wasn't hers. She looked up when they sat, probably because they didn't pretend to be anyone else. Will this be on a podcast? Violet asked, trying for a joke and landing on a plea. No, Arya said. It will be in a book. Violet blinked. Scary. Books are slow, Arya said. Slow scares the right things. Violet tucked hair behind her ear twice, resetting a nervous loop. I didn't send the envelope, she said. I swear. We traced the printer, Arya said. See. 70 Twanagative. 4,491. Violet closed her eyes once and opened them. Alistair asked for variations, she said. He said anger cuts through noise. Did he say who told him that? Noah asked. Agency lead, she said. A guy named Sam, from Palladium. He likes verbs that hurt. Arya wrote Palladium, Sam on a napkin, because the book was in her other hand, and ritual demanded ink somewhere. When did he say it? She asked. Breakfast. Violet said, yesterday, before the town hall. Time, Arya asked. Violet's eyes flicked to a wall clock, then back to the napkin, as if it were a tiny judge. 9:03, she said. He kept saying 9:03, lucky number after a pitch they won. Arya underlined, Linzhou, Lingsan, she said. We'll check camera. Am I fired? Violet asked. You're underwater, Arya said. Hold your breath. We'll see. Violet laughed once, sharp and breaking. I can't swim. Most of us can't, Noah said. We walk the bottom and push. Arya stood. The cafeteria's hum folded around them, fridge compressors, the soft chime of a point of sale. She looked at Noah. We'll put Palladium on the record, she said. I want the brief. And the retainer? Chain and custody, he said. And a receipt, she said. Everything ends in a receipt. They stepped into the corridor that led to legal, where the carpet pretended to be important. Verena stood at the far end, alone, watching her reflection in a dark window that showed her the city and herself. At once, you're not required, Arya said. Neither are homilies, Verena said. She didn't turn. Consider this a courtesy. To whom? Noah asked. To the story, she said. It won't love you back. Arya didn't rise. Then we change its diet. Verena glanced over her shoulder, and the look carried something new. Not fear, but recognition that the ground had shifted by degrees. You mistake me, she said lightly. I'm not the villain. Noah kept his voice even. No one thinks they are. She smiled. It didn't reach anywhere meaningful. Stay in your lane, she said again, almost gentle now, as if repetition could make it true. He slid his hand into his pocket and pressed the tuning fork halves together. The note lifted clean and held. He let them fall apart. The tone vanished, leaving only the corridor's low mechanical hum and the whisper of climate control brushing along the ceiling like breath. Arya checked her watch. Interview room in 10, she said. Then Palladium. Then printers go to evidence. And after? Noah asked. After we keep boring, she said, until someone glamorous trips. They move. The building moved with them in small ways, doors breathing, vents speaking soft. At the end of the hall, a copier spat a single sheet into its tray and went quiet. The paper settled with a sound like a decision. Palladium's office pretended to be a gallery. White walls, pour concrète, a snake of cable hidden too well. A photograph of a burning tire hung over reception like a hymn to urgency. The receptionist wore headphones big enough to cancel accountability. Arya showed her badge, not her face. Governance. We're here for Sam. The receptionist didn't remove the headphone. She lifted a finger, kept typing, then pointed down a corridor that smelled like cologne and toner, warmed in a small machine. Sam waited in a glass cube with a rug as thin as a promise. He stood to greet them, the kind of smile that remembered mirror. You're the famous ledger, he said to Arya. And you. He looked Noah up and down once. Nothing lingered. You're the soundtrack. We're tape, Arya said. She set WL-17 on the table and placed a legal envelope beside it. Litigation hold. Effective now. Sam's grin dipped at the edges. You came dressed. Preservation prevents regret, she said. All files, devices, drafts, prints. Nothing leaves, nothing deletes. He tapped the envelope as if it might hiss. We're a creative partner, not a crime scene. You're both, Noah said. Sam gestured to chairs. Let's keep this civil, he said. My espresso is sensitive. Arya didn't sit. She slid a second paper across. We'll take the brief that uses our people as stakes, and the retainer. Sam glanced toward the ceiling camera, then lowered his voice. You know clients approve everything. We supply verbs. Whose verbs said bleach the edges? Noah asked. A small beat. Sam smiled again. Smaller. You're misreading housework as strategy. Arya opened WL-17. E11. She said softly. She clicked a pen. Chain opens tin. Shabah. Arshad C. Location. Palladium Conference Room. Partie présente A. D. N. M. S. Renair. Her handwriting made the wood seem steadier. Sam poured himself espresso and didn't offer any. You can have our decks, he said. Performing generosity. Every brand has a bruised fruit story. Yours just happens to eat well. Backups and metadata, Arya said, as sipped. We'll bag the source machine. He lifted his cup and drank as if that solved thirst generally. Our IT guy hates visitors. Arya nodded, as if agreeing to disagree with the weather. A preservation notice trumps hate, she said. He shrugged and pressed a button under the table. A door latched somewhere. A man in a t-shirt with Palladium knock in silver letters appeared like a bouncer you'd hire to watch a password. He had the long patience of people who babysit other people's carelessness. Mirror my drive, Sam said. Bored. Give them the zip. The NOC tech sat. rolled forward, typed like a drummer tuning for a small room. A progress bar crept the slow ballet of 1,000 small files, pretending to be one, the screen reflected in the glass as neon punctuation. Noah walked to the gallery wall. A print of a flood shone under track lights. The water looked clean. He pressed his thumb against the glass over the high water mark and felt the cold. "You like disaster," he said. "They convert," Sam said. "People drown," Noah said. Sam looked at him as if gauging whether the sentence wanted a price. "Our job is narrative oxygen," he said. "You like engines. We like breath." Arya slid a third paper across. "Einvoice Kopie," she said. "Days and hours. Names attached." Sam set down his cup. "Governance pretends time is pure," he said. "It never is. Time is sponsored." Noah heard the fork halves knock his ribs when he exhaled. He kept his hand out of his pocket because sometimes rituals look like fear. The NOC tech spoke without turning. "Tips hot," he said, hashing now. "Treao teo calfias. Halvums. Ip." He wrote it with a Sharpie on a sticky note and handed it to Arya without looking at her fingers. "E11A. Arya said, sliding the note under WL17's thin ribbon. "Thank you." Sam spread his hands. "You see, cooperative. We save time. Time remembers," Arya said. She reached for the USB, dropped it into a tamper sleeve, and pressed the edges with her thumb. "E11 sealed 10. Arsha sit. Ling San." She held the marker out. "Witness." Sam signed with a flourish that implied he autographed things often. He smiled past the plastic. "You're making me important. You made yourself relevant," she said. "We make you recorded." He leaned in, elbows on glass. "Noah," he said, sudden, intimate. "Tell me about the fork." Noah didn't move. "What fork?" "The one in your pocket," Sam said. "The one you touch when you need a line." The room compressed. Arya's head turned a degree, locating every camera and the absence of microphones. Noah let the silence sit a second longer than seemed safe. "You're asking the wrong organ," he said. "Ask your conscience." Sam laughed softly. "We pitched the hospital story because it sang, not because it belongs to you. If you want to own your own music, buy the rights." Arya capped her pen. "Interview's over," she said. Sam shrugged as if endings were theatrical choices. "You can't govern appetite," he said. "People like the scar more than the surgery. Scars mean a body healed," Noah said. "Surgery means someone tried." They left him with his coffee and his reflection. In the hallway, a wall of awards watched them pass like small, glassy jurors. Noah paused at a frame with a pressed pass from a music festival. The lanyard still smelled faintly like beer. "Palladium forwarded a cut to comms yesterday at 9:03, Arya said, scrolling. "Subject line, stakes that stick. Violet gave us the time." Noah said, "The angle's theirs, which makes the angle ours now." Arya said, "They took the stairs, not the elevator." The cement steps wore the dust of 1,000 decisions. At the landing, a window looked east to a river that moved like a belt. A tug honked once, distant and absurd in scale. Arya's phone buzzed. Hans Meyer's name slid across the screen. She answered on speaker. "We have a partner problem," he said without preamble. "Palladium, we're in their hallway," she said. "Good." Hans said, "Their London office hosts a mirror of your vendor portal. The retainer has a clause that shifts liability back to you. It reads sweeter than it tastes." "Send it," Arya said. Hans did. A PDF with paragraph numbers like teeth. Arya skimmed, eyes moving in jerks. "They drafted an indemnity that leans on story convenience," she said. "It's poison disguised as polish." "Would you like a press call?" Hans asked, almost cheerful. "Investors adore contrition at scale." Not yet, Arya said. We're building chain. Then we cut. Hans chuckled. Engineers are the last romantics. He said, they believe cause precedes effect. Because it does, Noah said. Hans ummed. Send me your hash strings. He said, I'll teach my lawyers to sing. Back at the plant, legal's floor wore carpet like a disguise. A junior counsel with a nervous tie brought a rolling case for the evidence. Sleeves, he clicked the latches as if locking a kennel. E11, E10, E9, Arya said, placing the sleeves into foam cutouts with a care that looked like love. Custody to legal at 11. Sarar, Shoujo. The junior initialed, letters tiny, and tried not to look proud. Now the bill, Noah said. Arya nodded. They walked to a phone room barely larger than a closet. Inside, it smelled like paint that never fully cured. She dialed the hospital again. Hi, she said. We expect fraud attempts against account ending 2084. We are sending a signed letter and a log of IPs. Please mark it. The woman on the other end spoke in a tempo designed to calm. We'll add a flag, she said. No changes without in-person verification. Record the call. Arya said. Send us the reference number. A second later, Ref 7719 Alpha. The woman said. Arya wrote it on the inside cover of WL17 and underlined it once. Thank you, she said, and meant it. They stepped back into the corridor. Verena stood at the far end again, as if the hallway had grown her like a plant. She held a folder with the unintentional air of someone who might throw it. You went to Palladium, she said. We preserved your story, Arya said. Verena's eyes were bright, with a heat Arya had not seen before. You are strangling speed, she said. This company breathes pace. It was gasping. Noah said. Verena looked between them and found a decision she didn't like but would try. Come to my office, she said. Now. The room was colder than most offices, a setting that persuaded sweat to behave. Verena closed the door with a whisper and stood with her back against it. Posture perfect. Do you think I don't know how this looks? She said softly. Which part? Arya said. All of it. Verena said. Eyes on the river of cars below. We promised the market a horizon. I moved us toward it. If we stall, we bleed. You cut corners and hope the road curved, Noah said. Verena breathed in, then out. The breath made no sound. If I throw Palladium under the bus, we keep a partner and lose a reputation, she said. If I throw you, we keep a story and lose a spine, which costs less. Ask the file, Arya said. Verena laughed once, tired and sharp. The file doesn't have a board seat, she said. Give it one, Noah said. She turned. For a moment, the muscles at her jaw softened, and the room saw a person who missed sleeping. I can survive scandal, she said. I can't survive boredom. Investors don't fund conscience. Hansline texted. Arya read. Board emergency at 13. Ling Ling. Bring seals. She slid the phone into her pocket and met Verena's eyes. The thing that kills you isn't boredom, she said. It's pretense. Verena stepped around the desk. She set the folder down and opened it. Memoranda. A retainer. An email with subject heat or die. Heffingas hoa the bow. Then withdrew. Take them, she said, voice flat. E12. If it helps you sleep. Arya didn't move. Say it out loud, she said. Verena's mouth hesitated, then spoke. I sourced the agency, she said. I approved the angle. I didn't instruct threats. Overreach, Arya said. That's the word. Verena leaned back against the desk, as if it might catch her. Overreach, she repeated, each syllable admitting a temperature. I misjudged what the story would eat. Arya opened WL17. E12, she said, writing. Chain opens 12. Lin C. Sancher E. Source. Sloan office. Voluntary handover. She wrote slowly, making each letter a rung. Witness. Verena took the marker. She printed V. S. in tight, precise strokes. The cap clicked back on with a note like a lid closing on a jar. Noah pressed the tuning fork halves together in his pocket. The vibration came up the bones of his wrist and into the hollow of his chest. It felt less like a sound now, and more like a line drawn from one choice to another. Quiet settled. The office's HVAC whispered along the ceiling, trying to sound like weather. Down on the street, a bus sighed, then groaned, then moved. Bored at 13, Arya said. Verena nodded. I'll bring a new face, she said. The one that admits angles have edges. Arya sealed the folder into a sleeve and wrote the time. E12 seal, she said. She tapped the cover of WL17 with her knuckles, that small, stubborn gavel. We keep boring. Verena almost smiled. Try not to drown me in it, she said. Keep your head, Noah said. They left her with the glass and the heat and a decision that had already started eating whatever it could reach. In the corridor, Arya breathed once, deep, as if the air itself might bless the minutes to come. Next, she said. Next, he said. They walked toward governance, carrying a folder that weighed less than it meant. The fluorescent lights buzzed like flies trapped in summer. The hum from the bay, 3 floors down, climbed the ductwork and settled into their chests. It sounded like a machine trying a better rhythm. It sounded like a choice. The boardroom sat 30 floors up, bright as an interrogation, glass on 3 sides, the city's grid smoldering under thin clouds. A dozen leather chairs faced each other like polite enemies. The air smelled conditioned and faintly chemical, lemon hiding something truer. Miriam Vale set WL17 at true north. She aligned her water and didn't drink it. Governance convenes, she said. The tabletop clock clicked to 12. Wusha Jo, Wusha Ba, Wusha Jo, Shusan, Ling Ling, Ling Ling. Record. The red LED woke. A ceiling mic caught the room's first breath. Verena Sloan entered. Jacket darker today, hair carved into place. She carried a folder Arya had sealed an hour earlier. Hans Meyer took a seat 3 chairs down, rain still drying at his cuffs. 2 directors with the careful faces of old money settled opposite. Arya placed evidence sleeves in a line. E9 through E12 shone under lights like clean tools. Noah stood at the back wall near a whispering vent, the tuning fork halves warm against his ribs. Ms. Sloan, Miriam said, you requested this session. Verena nodded, composed. We have 2 tasks, she said. Keep the engine honest. Keep the market fed. We'll eat truth, Hans said. Bring the plates. Arya tapped the first sleeve. E9, she said. Threat print. Source. Comms Epson C72 negative 4,491. Dot pattern match. Chain opened 07. Sushasu. Ling San. She set the page on the display arm. A second camera zoomed. The toner letters ugly and loud. Stay in your lane. One director leaned forward. You traced it? He asked. Printer telemetry. Arya said. We logged serial. Nos la bioche. Maintenance signature. The dot grid places it in our bullpen at 09:06 yesterday. Verena lifted a hand, as if hailing a cab. That print never left the building, she said. It was a draft in poor taste. No intent to deliver. Hans looked at her, as if reading a recipe he didn't trust. Drafts still stain, he said. E10. Aria continued. Seized unit, 2 ipsic minus 4491, bagged at 09, Archer R. Ling Wu. Witness, contractor Tessa March. The sleeve caught light, plastic whispering. Internal interview confirms pressure from agency for stakes. I-do. Verina's smile thinned. A junior overreached. She said, "We've corrected." Miriam's pen moved once. "Overreach eins," she murmured into the minutes. Arya slid the next sleeve. E11, she said. Palladium brief. And cut. Hash triotio galfierds. Halfems BBB. Preservation notice served 10. Sherba. Arshati. Retainer contains a liability shift. We have the clause. Read it. Hans said. Arya did. Client indemnifies agency for narrative harm arising from strategic amplification, including but not limited to reputational loss. She set the page down as if it weighed more. They returned the knife to our kitchen. Verina's fingers made 2 tiny taps against the folder edge. Standard agency language, she said. We would have renegotiated. Speed required trust. Speed demanded amnesia, Miriam said. Hans folded his hands. Overreached Zwei, he said softly. Write it. Arya lifted ethos last. The sleeve held the memoranda from Verina's office. The email with heat or die. The retainer print signed in a careful hand. Voluntary handover at 12. Ling Tsi, Santri, she said, initialed by Ms. Sloane. She tapped the signature. We appreciate the choice. Verina kept her chin even. I'll correct the record, she said, publicly. We'll cute Palladium. We'll fund an independent audit. We keep the launch cadence. Miriam glanced at Hans. Investor. Hans didn't rush. Cadence without conscience loses long, he said. Slow a quarter to live 10 years. A director cleared her throat. Her pearls sat like small verdicts. Markets punish delay. Markets punish lies more. Hans said. Ask Wirecard. Ask Theranos. A quiet passed through the room like shadow. The screen behind them showed telemetry from the bay. A slow pulse of green, telling nobody to panic yet. Noah kept to the wall. Felt the duck's low breath on his scalp. He sensed the meeting's pitch. Small changes like a machine settling. He let one hand find the linen bag, pressed the 4 calves together. They rang against bone, a private metronome. He loosened his grip. Miriam turned to Noah. Mr. Mercer. He straightened. Yes, you proposed chain reforms, she said, and you're stepping to Munich if we approve. Her eyes held him the way a laser holds a line. What breaks if we don't? Trust, he said, and then metal. Hans smiled with his eyes. The order matters. A junior assistant slipped in with a tray of paper cups. Coffee smelled like a decision softened by cream. No one touched it. Verina spoke again. Kieter, Noah saved us once, she said. He hears what machines hide. I value that, but we cannot afford saints who slow timelines. Don't make me a saint, Noah said. Make me a break. Miriam wrote that sentence into WL-17 verbatim. She underlined it once. A vibration ran up the table before anyone heard the buzz. Phones lit. A push alert rolled across screens with cheerful urgency. Engine leak footage surfaces. Hospital bills shown. A second alert. Anonymous source. Question chain integrity. The room inhaled and didn't release. Miriam looked at Arya. Arya's jaw went tight at the hinge. She flipped WL-17 to a fresh line. Shasan. Surseed. Wusha'ar, she said. External leak. Annotate. Hans watched his phone as if testing it for honesty. The market's already chewing, he said. Verina turned to the glass wall. Face shuddered against the city. Who pushed it? Clip shows our logo. A director said faintly. Lower third says, Hero Janitor. That but Noah felt the heat climb his neck. The hospital portal screen flashed uninvited on the leak. A number, a name. He swallowed. Arya spoke evenly. Timeline, she said. PR stage 2, exfil attempt at Nitin, Sishasan. Ons last night. We bagged the machine. Legal hold. But someone had a copy. Hans tapped the table twice. A sailor counting swells. Containment plan, he said. We release raw, Arya said, body cam and overhead audio, ledger and seals. We engage the hospital first, not press. We pay a donation to cover the exploited account. Noah chooses if his name appears. That empties our ammo, a director said. Then what? Then we live with accuracy, Arya said. It's less flammable. Verina's eyes tracked the LED. Then Noah. This hurts, she said. Good, Hans said mildly. Pain educates. Miriam placed both hands flat. Vote on 2 motions, she said. 1. Adopt governance custody and Noah's chain protocol. 2. Accept Ms. Sloane's conditional admission and censure. Replace comms partner. Delay cadence 4 weeks. A director in a navy suit squinted at the ceiling. Censure isn't removal, he said. Miriam met him with a thin smile. Not yet. Verena held Miriam's gaze. If you drag me, you brand us weak, she said. We brand us teachable, Miriam said. Hans lifted his hand. Call the vote. Motion 1, Miriam said. All in favor. Hands rose. Hans. Pearl necklace. Navy suet. 1 dissent. A man with a down-market watch and up-market shoes. Motion 2, Miriam said. All in favor. More hands. Verena stared at the glass as if a different vote hovered out there. A better city. Passed, Miriam said. Her voice didn't change. The LED didn't blink. The city continued ignoring them. Verena breathed. A sound so small it almost wasn't. Noted, she said. Statement draft. Arya said. We hold our language tight. No adjectives. Hans stood. I'll carry it to investors, he said. They'll like the taste of adult. Phones kept buzzing. Small wasps trapped under glass. The leak clip kept multiplying. The hospital portal, a number. The word final in red. Noah's chest tightened. Miriam faced him. You decide your name, she said. No pressure, only consequences. He nodded once. Keep it, he said. But blur the ledger line with her name. Arya wrote the line. Consent. Name public. Redact mothers. She added the time. Shasan. Arshasan. Shizhou. Then circled it. And Munich. Hans asked. Noah looked at the city grid and saw a line running across the ocean. Not a plane route, but a wire. I'll go, he said. Only if the file travels. It will, Miriam said. And the fork. He smiled without showing teeth. The fork sits in my bone. Pearl necklace cleared her throat. We still have the engine, she said. We ship or we starve. Arya nodded. We ship, she said. With the seal log printed on the crate, Hans laughed once. Make dull famous, he said. The LED blinked twice, then steadied. A building vibration drifted in ductwork. Wind. The sound of an elevator finding a floor. Miriam closed WL-17 on the last line with the soft thump that meant law. Adjourned, she said. Shasan. Arshijou. Linling. Chairs scraped. The sound was human again. Verena didn't move. She pressed her palms flat on the table and looked at the city until her eyes didn't see it. When she stood, she left no fingerprint on the glass. In the hallway, the air felt warmer, cheaper. Arya kept pace with Noah until the corridor kinked around a column. She stopped, put a hand on his forearm, and didn't lower her voice. I wired the hospital donation, she said. Anonymous. It's not charity. It is, he said. I'll replace it. Replace the story, she said. Money sleeps, reputations wake. He nodded, throat tight. The fork halves pressed into his ribs when he breathed. He didn't press back. A calm staffer sprinted past with a laptop open like a book aflame. "We lost the watermark," she said to no one. "It's all over Reddit." Miriam caught up, carrying the sealed folder like a small animal. "One more thing," she said. "We'll need a statement from your mother. Consent for the record." Noah closed his eyes a beat. "I'll ask," he said. Arya put a card in his pocket as if tucking a talisman. "Passion liaison," she said. "Direct line, reference 7719. Alpha." He nodded again. Words felt like screws, and his mouth lacked a screwdriver. The hallway hummed. Somewhere far below, a siren threaded the afternoon air, then faded. They reached the elevator. The doors slid open to reveal no one. A rectangle of city floated in the polished steel. The three of them stepped in, faces reflected small and trying. The car moved. Fluorescents hummed. 30 floors descended into 23. Into 18. Into 9. At 5, the car shook a half inch, recovered, and continued. No one spoke. At the lobby, the doors parted. The atrium flashed light at them like weather. A press gaggle had already assembled, microphones sprouting, lenses sniffing. The publicist lifted a hand too late to stop momentum. Arya touched Noah's sleeve. "Boring," she said. "Boring," he said. They stepped into the noise. The first question hit like a bottle thrown from the cheap seats. "Are you the janitor?" Noah kept his eyes level. "I'm the line," he said. "We're keeping it straight." The cameras blinked. The sentence hung. For a second, the room made an odd, clean stillness that felt like a door opening. Then the lights got hotter. Then the questions returned. Then the atrium's hum rose to meet them, patient and unafraid, like a machine that had learned a better rhythm and refused to forget it. Munich woke in blue. Cold light seeped through high panes. Dust motes hung like slow rain. The factory smelled of new paint and machine oil. Heat bled from the floor where pipes kept concrete honest. A row of engines waited in their cradles, shrouded in plastic that whispered when you brushed it. Noah stood at Bay A, breath ghosting. His badge read "Diagnostic Lead" in a font that didn't need to shout. The tuning fork halves pressed quiet against his ribs. He touched the linen bag like an old habit, and set his palm an inch over the skin of the first unit. The hum lived in the metal, not yet awake, eager to remember its note. "Guten Morgen," the line supervisor said. She wore a navy fleece and a sensible ponytail. Schedule printed. He scanned the clipboard. Timestamps, neat as stitches. Ling C, 30 preheat. Ling C, 45 handshake. Ling Ba, 00 seal scan. Beside each, a small empty box waiting for ink. He liked the boxes. He liked the waiting. Arya's face appeared on the overhead screen. Studio light, flattened by a webcam. Behind her, WL-17 lay open and stubborn. "You see us?" she asked. "We see you," Noah said. The mic made his voice colder than it felt. Hans Meyer stood at his elbow with a paper cup of coffee and weather in his coat. 4 weeks bought us boredom," he said. "Investors are still breathing. Say their names with the seals." Arya said, "Make them carry part of the weight." He set the first crate on the scanner. A QR bled black on white, crisp as a bandage. The screen blinked awake. Seal 2219 flare. Opened 07. Sushasan. Ling R. A. Delgado. M. Veil. Under it, a checksum string that meant less to the camera than to the fork in his pocket. Chain verified. The supervisor said. She ticked a box. The pen squeaked. He loved that sound more than applause. "Bring her up," Hans said. Noah rolled the engine under the gantry. He toggled the handshake. Lights on the harness answered, green blooming to life. The note rose inside the casing as heat tickled the skin. He closed his eyes and placed the fork halves together inside the linen bag. Not to hear but to feel the vibrations argument. It kissed bone. It matched. At 08, Ling Si. Yi. The first unit settled into that narrow throat where truth lives. The hum found its key. The floor remembered it. Arya's voice crawled the speaker. Lloyd. The supervisor raised a camera. Old school. Orange label on the side. She took 2 photos, one wide, one close, then flipped a card into a sleeve and wrote with a careful hand, E. Muck 01. Ling Ba. Ling Ba. Ling. Witness N. M. She held out the pen. He printed N. M. like a man signing for a package that might explode if treated lightly. A phone buzzed against his hip. A text from Miriam. Press at 09. Sancher. Statement locked. Another from Arya. Hospital 7719 Alpha confirms flag. Liaison on standby. He answered with a single line, received. Then he set the phone under the console, face down. By 08, Sisher. They'd moved 3 engines down the row. A rhythm established itself. Scan, tie, tick, hum, hold. A routine so plain it felt like a prayer no one had to believe in to keep. A worker coughed into her elbow and wiped her goggles with the hem of a shirt that had been washed in a different country. In the distance, a forklift beeped, insistent and polite. Verina's apology played on loop above the cafeteria downstairs. The German subtitles made her English look more serious. She stood at a podium, arms still, hair softer. Overreach, she said. My mistake. I mistook appetite for ethics. We cut palladium today. We fund an audit that reports to governance, not me. I accept censure. She paused, eyes finding a place in the middle distance where pride goes to cool. We delay ship so we can stand the weight of what we ship. Employees watched and pretended not to watch. A dishwasher clanked, turned the moment into a domestic sound that forgave nothing. A maintenance man older, invisible by training, nodded at the screen like a man who recognized a common cold. At 09, Shirar, the hospital called. The liaison's voice carried fluorescent fatigue. We've flagged the account, she said. Any request requires in-person with 2 forms and the reference 7719 Alpha. Noah said, that's the one, she said. We also received an anonymous donation. We applied it to the oldest balance. He looked at the light strip over Bay B. It buzzed the way cheap fixtures confess. Thank you, he said. Please thank whoever cares. She said, we never get to call with good news. He ended the call, set the phone back down, and let the information pass through him without getting stuck. The press gaggle formed by the gate at 09:30, like a weather front. Hans faced them with his hands open. We slowed to ensure accuracy. He said, we regret the harm. We prefer boredom to spin. He said it in English, then in German, his consonants tidy as tools. Someone shouted for Verina. She didn't come. Miriam's voice called in from the screen behind. Ledger open. Seals printed. Ask for the file. They did. Arya posted the hashes to a page with a white background and a title that read like an invoice. Comments blossomed and then withered when confronted with work. By 10, Shawu. The first crate left the floor with the seal log printed on a sticker the size of a hand. A driver signed a paper, the ink spreading greedily into fibers. The line supervisor initialed, chain of custody attached. Noah watched the pallet jostle and settle in the truck the way a heart might, a heavy thing that decided to keep going. Verena stepped onto the Munich floor at 10:30 without ceremony. No camera followed. She wore flats and no diamonds, as if the clothes could apologize on her behalf. "May I watch?" she asked. The supervisor didn't answer. She gestured to a yellow stripe and a pair of earplugs. Verena stood behind the line and did as told. Her posture didn't win any prizes. Noah didn't look at her. He listened to the engine on bay C, wrist, translating vibration to thought. The note bent a millimeter, then corrected without help. He nodded. He didn't know if she saw. Between engines, he opened the linen bag and pressed the forecalves once, a habit he wasn't ready to examine. The note traveled up his arm and into his chest. For the first time in weeks, the sound felt less like a warning and more like a tether. Area pinged. Legal serves Palladium. Contract rescinded. Clause burned. She attached a scan of the letter with a stamp in blue that bled at the corners. Received 10, Sishiyi. Lingzhou. Violet emailed a resignation at 10:52 with 3 sentences and no exclamation points. The last one read, "I'm going back to school to learn something I can live with." Arya sent her a referral in reply and added good ink in the subject line. At 11, Ling Ling. Noah's mother answered on the first ring. Hospital light made her sound further away than phones should allow. "Baby," she said. "You eating?" "Working," he said. "The good kind." "Your paper came," she said. "People are texting me funny new manners." "You don't owe them a story," he said. "I owe you a signed form," she said. The lady brought it with her nice hands. I read it slow. I signed where it told me. "Tell your lady I used a blue pen. She'll like that," he said. "You bring that fork next time," she said. "Your grandfather's spirit needs a walk." "I will," he said, and put the phone down like a fragile tool. The day turned a corner without blinking. Engines moved. Boxes ticked. Signatures stacked like a brick wall, plain and difficult to ignore. In the corner of the floor, a TV showed a panel debating whether Janitor Hero was manipulative. The mute made their mouths look like engine valves, opening and closing without air. At 13, Sancher, Hans found Noah by the freight door, hands in pockets, gaze on a strip of sky. Investors liked the flavor. Hans said, "Dull with bite. Keep them hungry for dull," Noah said. Hans nodded. "We'll try." Verena approached then. "Alone. No entourage. No paper shield." She stopped with her shoes at the yellow line. "We ship," she said. "We do," Noah said. She looked at the crate label. Read the seal numbers like a poem she didn't choose. "I thought I was protecting the company," she said, "not asking for forgiveness, not wearing a hair shirt. It was my job to make heat. Engines make heat," he said. "Your job is to keep them from burning the room." She nodded once, jaw working as if chewing a sentence she couldn't swallow. "I'll send a memo," she said. "I'll keep it short." "Short is honest," he said. She almost smiled. "I am not the villain," she said. "Kidder now. You were hungry in the wrong direction," he said. She left before the line had time to pity her. The flats didn't sound like power. They sounded like shoes you can stand in. At 14, Ling Ling. Arya logged off. WL-17 closed with its familiar soft thump. "Keep your receipts," she said. "I'll keep mine." The plant softened around the edges toward evening. Light tilted warm. The smell of oil hemorrhaged into the smell of cut wood when crates stacked. Somewhere, a radio played something in German about leaving and staying at once. The words didn't matter. The beat did. Noah moved back along the line, hand hovering, listening not just for fault but for fatigue. Machines lie when tired. People lie sooner. He found neither. He found a practiced truth. workmanlike and unglamorous, the kind you can live with. At 17, Lingar, a small ceremony no one announced. The last crate of the shift eased into place. The supervisor initialed a final box. The pen scraped. She blew on the ink by reflex, then smiled at herself for doing it. He smiled back. The brief kind. He stepped outside. The air bit his teeth, then forgave them. Evening rolled over the lot like a recallable dream. He took the linen bag from his pocket and slid the fork halves out into his palm. The metal was warm from him. He pressed them together once. The note rose, thin and true. It moved through his bones and into the space behind his sternum where the day had left a bruise. It held, then faded, not quite to silence, more to a promise that wasn't language. Across the street, a billboard lit. Story does not equal truth in white on blue. Someone had paid for that sentence. Someone would pay for the rebuttal. Quiet stretched between them like a wire. He pocketed the fork. He checked the time 17. Ling Wu, 19, and wrote it into a small book he carried now when the big one lived on another continent. One line, one box, one mark. He closed it. Inside, a forklift beeped, then hushed. The plant exhaled. The city answered, with a light changing from green to yellow to red, obedient and useless. He felt the weight of what they'd lost and what they'd kept. It didn't balance. It didn't need to. He walked back toward the bay. The hum met him at the door like a dog that knows your shoes. He set his left hand on the bracket of the first engine waiting for tomorrow, and thought not of launches or investors or press, but of hands on metal and the small, honest work of keeping a line straight in a room that loves to curve. He breathed in. He breathed out. The building held. Keep the line straight, he said. The room listened. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought in silence inside the rooms, where truth feels too costly, or in hearts afraid of being seen. This story reminds us that dignity isn't a luxury reserved for the powerful. It's the quiet right of everyone who refuses to bend their spine for approval. Like the old saying goes, real gold doesn't fear the fire. Every test, every injustice we face, has a way of revealing what can't be burned away. Noah's fight was never just about engines or corporate lies. It was about keeping a line straight in a room that loves to curve. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. Integrity isn't loud, it's consistent. It's found in small acts done right when no one's watching, in speaking up when silence feels safer, in choosing decency over speed. The world often rewards noise, but character grows in the quiet one choice, one moment, one truth at a time. So if you've ever been made to feel invisible, or been told your honesty slows things down, remember, slowing down is how we keep from losing ourselves. Stand your ground. Hold your line. The world needs people who still care about what's true, even when it's inconvenient. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. What moments of quiet courage have shaped your life? Tap like if you believe integrity still matters, and subscribe for more stories that stir both heart and conscience. And wherever you are tonight, may you rest easy, knowing that even in the noise, your truth still hums quietly, waiting to be heard.